feminism has been the same thing since the beginning of feminism. Like the tenets were to destroy the nuclear family, cause confusion, to gain power or authority over men. That was there from Seneca Falls. They're like, so it's never really changed. It just changed in how it presented itself. What is your thoughts on feminism?
Second wave was taken over immediately by radical lesbians. They're not actually helping women. They lie about rape conviction statistics, particularly when they dismantle heterosexuality and the family. Yeah. What feminists kind of don't take any appreciation of is the role of women in the patriarchy. A lot of people might think that feminism is anti-male. I think primarily it's actually anti-women. A lot of feminists are misandrists, but mostly it's about just control over, well, just people who aren't feminists, basically, because there are as many male feminists today as there are female.
Our top story tonight: the widespread of the delusion virus seems to be making its way across the country. First reports starting in upstate New York, and then all the way down to the Florida coast. For furthermore on the story, we go to our one and only man in the field, the Hudsman. Huds, are you there?
Hello, Glenn. This is a very, very scary moment that we're having right now. I'm still trying to digest it. What started as a small outbreak in upstate New York spread all the way to New York City. And then it spread all the way down to Philadelphia and then Washington, D.C., all the way down to Miami, Florida, spread across the country, all the way to Oklahoma, all the way up to Montana, all the way over to Washington. And then it ran down the western coastline.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
All the way to Santa Barbara, California. Now, I have something for you. I have a clip to show you from Santa Barbara from the Whatever podcast. You have to check this out.
Okay.
We're asked, ask everyone to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. So let's do that.
10.
Kikyo, so okay, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
10.
A fat fucking 10.
A fat fucking 10?
What the heck did I just see right there?
Wait a minute. Is that what the virus looks like? Jabba? It gets into the girls, it makes them fat, it makes them think that they're a 10? Oh my God. This is worse than I thought. Thank you for watching. And if you like this episode, please do us a favor. Hit the like down below. Also, if you want to see more of these, please make sure you hit the subscribe button as well and the notification bell. You never want to miss one. And if you want to donate and sponsor an episode, please feel free to send donations to the Cash App in the description. We always could use your support. It is the Red Pill Newscast. Signing off. Good night.
Glenn, who's supposed to be my guest today, still hasn't shown up. I might actually have to call him like while we're live here on air. Like, bro, what's going on, man? These time changes, though, they mess with people. Like, it's so hard scheduling things. I'm scheduling some upcoming interviews, and one of the guys I want to interview is this guy. He goes by Mish Chad of Arabia, and he actually lives in the Middle East. And so I'm trying to like figure out the time difference and stuff. It's like a 9-hour time difference. So I'm like, okay, well, is that what if I do it at this time? Is it still the same day? It's crazy. Same thing happens when I'm working with like Jack Napier, because Jack is in the Netherlands. So trying to get that stuff scheduled is sometimes difficult, but Glenn's only an hour difference. So I don't know what his excuse is this morning. All right, let's give him a call. Let's see if he's available. Because this was his idea, by the way. If you guys don't know Glenn, he's a co-host on the Dragon Ship podcast. It's pretty good. It's RP Thor's show.
Dude, sorry I'm late. I was on the highway and the fucking baby was running on the highway. Anyway, long story short, that's why I'm 5 minutes late for work, because it took a long ass time for me to get the fucking deliverer in the car.
It's time!
Content in this video may trigger you if you're a pansy, a feminist, soy boy, a white knight. So if you require a safe space and you don't know the real definition of tolerance, I suggest that you turn off this video and go find Drag Queen Story Hour somewhere. You might enjoy that better.
All right, guys, joining me is my man Glenn Lawrence. He's the Manosphere's resident Hollywood heartthrob, and he's also the co-host of the Dragon Ship podcast with RP Thor, and he also does all of the producing for Apex Mindset now. Now he makes videos on YouTube, and a lot of his videos are, he calls them correction videos.
I got Glenn Lawrence with me here today, too.
Glenn, we love Glenn.
The only white man I know on welcome, Glenn Lawrence.
Mr. Glenn Lawrence. There he is, Mr. Handsome, Mr. Hollywood.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Get that laid out. How you guys doing? Tonight we are going to be talking about something a little sensitive. So, unfortunately, there are not going to be many jokes tonight. I know you guys love the jokes, but today we're going to be talking about something serious. We're going to be talking about false allegations and why they are so much a problem. Let me bring my mic closer so you guys can hear me better, but how about that? Is that better now? Is my mic good? You guys can hear me good? All right, go. You know, we have been seeing these instances more frequent in the media. We hear about it in the news. We read about it in the papers. We may even know some people who are been victims of being accused of it. I want to point out that bringing to light the seriousness of these false allegations does not diminish or minimize the fact that women do get assaulted by men and do get raped by men. And it's not to take away from the real victims of those horrible acts. But we could also say that those acts are as horrible as they are. They're horrible, but we could also say accusing somebody falsely is horrible too. Now, you may try to say you can't equate the two. No, you cannot equate someone's physically taking the advantage of you physically to someone ruining your life in a way. You can't say it's the same, but the effects and the aftermath, well, they're definitely comparable because they both last for a lifetime. And trust me, I know because I've lived it, and I also know a few people that have gone through it. And it takes a lot of work to get to a place where you're comfortable again. But tonight we're going to be talking about what happened to the Bills punter, former Bills punter. His name is, let me get it right, Matt Ariza. I think I butchered that last name, but he will forgive me. He got accused while he was in college. And now he was released in the summer of July, I believe, of 2022 from the Bills after the Bills used him as their 6th round pick. And he was released in July once the accusations came out. And he just now was found innocent, or the charges were dropped because of, well, San Diego PD. And because it was false. Also, if you guys don't know who it is, this is the gentleman I'm talking about. I will read it to you. Prosecutors dropped the case after interviewing 35 witnesses who contradicted the accuser. During the 22 NFL draft, 21-year-old Matt Azaria, hailed by his fans as Punt God for his record-breaking abilities as a kicker, was selected to join the Buffalo Bills. But later that year, in August, the team cut Azaria due to an allegation of sexual misconduct. The allegation referenced an event that happened in October 15, 2021, house party near the campus of San Diego State University. A 17-year-old girl and her friend snuck into the party where she encountered Azaria. According to her, Azaria led her into a bedroom where 3 men viciously assaulted and raped her. The girl had filed a civil lawsuit against him. Prosecutors, however, declined to file charges earlier this week. The reason for this became known. Yahoo Sports and 200-page transcript of a meeting between the prosecutors and alleged victim, in which the former explains to the latter why her accusations is impossible. According to authorities, eyewitnesses' testimony established that Azaria left the party well before the point at which the girl claims she was brought into the room and alleged the assault took place. In fact, authorities were hard-pressed to concede an assault had taken place at all. Video footage of the sexual encounter suggests that it was consensual. But unfortunately, when the news came out of this alleged assault, the damage was already done. The Buffalo Bills released him. His name was already stained, and he had to wait 2 years for everything to be clear. In other news, Donald Trump, President Trump, was recently he received a verdict on his sexual assault case. He's held liable for sexual battery and defamation in a lawsuit. But what is interesting here is that the person that this lady, what's her name again? Let me see. E. Jean Carroll said that he raped her. And for some reason, see right here, during the trial, Carroll told the jury in court, because Donald Trump raped me and I wrote a book about it, and he said he didn't. Well, the verdict was Donald Trump didn't rape her. Now, I don't know where they're getting the sexual assault charges from or the sexual battery charges from. But typically, I'm thinking if there wasn't a rape, how could there be a sexual assault? But I don't know. Maybe it's 2 different instances that they're referring to. But again, alleged rape happened. People trampling the guy's name. We don't even know if this is done for political points. We don't know if this is done due to, ruin his second, run at the presidency. I'm sure there is some truth in that. How much, I don't know. But now he has to face that. I think that will probably definitely cause him to bow out, but we'll see. And this is also the anniversary of a suicide of a young person who was accused of rape. Yes. Wrong one. Hold on. Sorry, guys. A young man by the name of Jack Reed. Jack Reed. He was this young guy. He was going to a private school in I think it's Lawrenceville and in New Jersey. He was running for, I think, like school office, and this is a boarding school, I believe. So the kids lived there. Okay, and he was getting bullied, and because he was running for class president or president of something in the school, these girls made up some allegations about him, saying that he raped them, and there was allegedly 5 of them. And come to find out, because of these 5 girls were saying these things about him, he ended up taking his life. And all over false accusations. See, a few days after the election, the unfounded rape accusation was posted anonymously to a nationwide student-run app popular with the boarding school students. Jack's parents said, the bullying spread quickly online, his parents said, and at Christmas time, during a Secret Santa gift exchange among Lawrenceville classmates, Jack received a rape whistle and a book on how to make friends. Mr. Reed recalled that his son was hurt deeply and that when Jack came home for Christmas, he seemed withdrawn. Dad, will this ever go away? He asked his son. His son asked him, will it ever get off the website? Mr. Reed noted that in-person bullying at school combined with the power of the internet posting compounded the rumor's impact. We think bullying with the 1,000 time echo chamber of the internet and everybody knowing is much more devastating to kids, and in Jack's case, producing a very impulsive act. He said he had to escape the pain from the humiliation he was feeling. Early on, with the support from his parents, Jack approached the school officials and asked them to intervene, leading to the school-led investigation surrounding the bullying and the sexual assault allegations. The school inquiry found that the claim was bogus, and a classmate involved in spreading the rumors, who was later expelled for an unrelated violation of school rules, was formally disciplined for bullying Jack, according to the school statement. But Lawrenceville never told Jack or his family or anyone else that the investigation had concluded and that the rumors involving a sexual assault were utterly false. There were steps that the school should have, in hindsight, have taken, but did not, including the fact that the school did not make a public or private statement that it's investigated and found the rumors about Jack to be that were untrue, Lawrenceville said in a statement. So shortly after that, because they never cleared his name publicly, Jack decided to take his life because he couldn't live with the fact that people thought he was this rapist. Over rumors, over false allegations. This is sad. This is sad. So I'm going to bring up some people. I did send a link to RP Thor. He might be joining us. I did send the link to the Husband. He is here. And I did send the link to a couple other people. Sergio from Purple Pill. And I just got back from Pearl just messaged me, and she's going to bed. It's late over there, I guess. But yeah, next time, Pearl. Thank you. But yeah, so let me bring up HUDs and let's talk about this. What's up, man?
Not much, dude. I mean, this type of stuff is heavy. It's pretty crazy. And especially with all those things you listed out there, we are definitely living in a different time. And it's good for men to have people like you out here that are talking about it, because it's a discussion to be had. So it's very interesting. I know you and I both have dealt with some of this stuff in the past, maybe not to this extreme extent that to the point where we wanted to get rid of ourselves or have our entire reputation tarnished, but still, it's a tough world.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, when we think about it, right? People don't, and I don't want to get into like the words thing or damaging, because then like it goes back to the whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're seeing like people get real woke with what's being said. Like, words now cause people violence or something. I don't know, like, oh, my words, you're triggering me with violence with words. I don't know. I figure violence is physical. You know what I mean? Like, if I punched you in the face, that's pretty violent. If I told you to shut up, that's not violent. I just told you to shut up. But we have to be responsible. People need to realize that there's consequences for what we say and things that come out of our mouth. And obviously we see, people on YouTube, we see influencers, we see, even Don Lemon. He got fired because he told women that when they, there's the wall, basically, and he got let go because of the words he said. We need to make sure that women are now getting more held accountable. Women need to be held accountable also for the things that they say. Yes,
I'm curious. I'm curious where your thought process is on this, because I know we've talked about it before, but what we've seen is, and it's not just like a man versus woman thing, but it's kind of across the board. I wouldn't even say it's so much America. It's really across the board right now, where it's guilty until proven innocent. And where is that coming from?
I mean, to be honest with you, it is a more of a man versus woman thing. I want to give Randall a shout out. Shout out to Randall. Yes, silence is violence is also a thing. Yeah. Because you think about it, and I'll pull up, I got some information to share with people too. But let's think about it this way. When it comes to sexual assault allegations, sex assault, or whatever they call it on YouTube, grape allegations, and dominoes and vagina violence, DV violence. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know 64% or 65% of the time, those are accusations made from women about men. So the majority of the time when we have false allegations of any of those things, it's coming from women made against men. So it is a man versus woman thing in that sense, because men are not the ones making these allegations for, several reasons. I believe in the UK, it's not considered rape unless it's a male anatomy penetrating a hole,
Oh, I remember that when I read
but I have heard that they have been changing that in some provinces. But even in America, like here, like the only time that we see a woman getting accused or charged for any type of sexual assault is if she's a teacher, she's hot, and she hooked up with her student. Other than that,
and then she gets a slap on the wrist and doesn't have to go to jail for however long comparatively to a male teacher.
There's that. Also, did you hear about the story about this kid? He was, I think, 14 years old. He knocked up his teacher. She got in trouble, right? And then when the kid turned 18 years old, he had to start paying child support.
No, dude, you're making that up. There's no way. You're making that up.
No, Google it. Google it.
Oh, that's insanity.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. You know, it is. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I'm like, wait a minute. But I get it. The kid, she had a kid from him, so therefore, right? Somebody has to pay for the kid. But what's sad is that this is becoming all too familiar. You know, I played a clip that I did with Paula Wright, and before we went on, and it's talking about feminism, and just so you guys know, that interview is out now. It's it's on my YouTube channel. Please check it out after the video. But we had a great discussion, and she was exposing a lot about feminism. She actually was part of like that community at one point in her life. Not really like a soldier for them, but like kind of like felt with those beliefs until she studied evolutionary psychology, and she kind of realized that that was all crap. But she calls it out. She says exactly what it is. She says, they have a tendency, they push these false allegations, they push these false rape things, but nobody's doing anything about it. So let me share with everybody this. And I'm not sure if anybody could read it.
Try zooming in a little bit, see if we can get a little bit more.
I don't think we could get much more, but
that's pretty clear.
I'm going to read it to you guys. So this is out of the book called War of Justice Against Men or something like that. It's written by Dr. Eric Nelson. And I got the book, so that's why I just screenshot this. So this is in chapter 10, False Accusations of Rape and the Suppression of Dr. McDowell's Research. So Dr. McDowell, just so you guys know, was a special agent for the Air Force. So he worked for the OSI division. And that's a officer's special investigation. He did a project back in, I think it was 1990-ish, where basically he went back 25 years from 1965 to 1990. And he was looking at, his study was of every rape case ever reported to OSI worldwide, encompassing the entire Air Force, right? And his findings were rather remarkable. There were several hundred cases, and they were sorted into three categories. The accusations were proven true. The accusations were neither proven true or untrue. And then evidence proved that the accuser admitted lying, or the evidence proved, or that the accuser was admitted lying. So the cases that were proven true, only 20%. Only 20% of the evidence that they had proved that those cases were absolutely, guy was guilty. 30 to 40%, it was uncertain. It could have gone either way. But over 40 to 50% of all cases were proven false. That's telling you something. But unfortunately, his information was suppressed by a congresswoman. It's out now, but it was suppressed then, and it's still being suppressed because nobody wants to implement it into the policing model. It was a 16-point model that he did. It's a checklist that he came up with 52 scenario questions. And they were very, very much, helpful to dictate and determine whether or not the case is going to happen. Let's welcome RP Thor real quick, everybody. Hello.
Hey, brothers, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We're just getting into the Dr. Nelson's, or is it Nelson? Oh, I'm sorry. I think his name is forgot his name already. McDowell, Dr. McDowell's research on false accusations of rape and domestic violence.
Before we drop deeper into that, I want to hear Thor's thoughts because I don't know if he heard that from before. So, Thor, if you are, let's say, and I got some examples for you, Glenn, that I'm going to send you afterwards. If you are a teacher, let's say you're 25, whatever, 30 years old, and you have sex with a student who's, let's say, 15, and you get pregnant because that male student that you had sex with, does that mean that once he turns 18, that he should have to pay child support to you?
Well, I don't know the law. I know that Thor's change in the law would dictate that whoever the biological father is, if they're not together and married, then primary custody would have to be given to the father, regardless of age.
That could solve a lot of the problems. I just think it's crazy that you can be a woman in a lot of the law here, and you can have sex with an underage child, essentially, as we dictate it by the law, and then you still slap. It's funny, it's not funny, but it's interesting that one of the things that I have that I was looking at is that at the time he was 14, she was 20. She was his babysitter. And even though they marked it as statutory rape, once he turned 18, he had to pay $15,000 of back pay on child support.
Yeah. That's universal. You guys know that's an outgrowth of the Duluth model.
Yep.
Of the laws that were put together. Yep. And
actually, we're going to kind of get into that.
Do you guys realize that whenever, all of the legal system presses to have wage garnishments or back judgments? Do you guys know why they do that?
Inflation?
No, because they get to collect a portioned amount of it to pay for all the administrative fees and any associated costs with doing that, which creates departments within the social services just to collect and maintain garnished child support. So the money doesn't actually reach the child. The full amounts don't. And in some cases, it's approaching 40% of what is collected. And in some cases, I've even read in some states, it's near. Not only does that happen, but the federal government matches the amount that is retained from. Yeah, you know what? I'll probably be wrong on that, but I know that the federal government does match. I know that part. I don't know the amount. Okay. But the federal government matches, and they have for 2 decades now. You know who would be a good resource because he knows all the stats, and that's Terrence Popp. The federal government matches the withheld portion of the child support to that state agency directly as funding. They cut a check. So you'll see that almost in the majority of cases where child support or back child support is ordered, they always garnish future wages or future tax returns. And so that money collected also is associated with a fee that comes in from the federal government to pay for them too. And
it's a $1 billion business. Like, it's not going anywhere. I want to get back into this real quick, you guys.
So the woman might not even approach it that way. Once the case is opened and say there was allegations and it was opened as this criminal, it could be passed along directly to the child services, which would be child protective services. They will do it's not really in absentee, but they'll do it as an advocate for that child. It has nothing to do with the father or really
the past or anything. Yeah.
Like,
it has to do with the fact that the child exists. Glenn, I'm sorry for distracting, but I'm actually learning a lot right here. And I have
we're actually gonna get into this. There's a lot more here that actually kind of explains exactly what Thor's talking about. So this is like the feminist mandate number 3. And it requires feminists to always take the side of any female accusing any man. Amber Tablin says, there are not two sides of every story. A senior prosecutor in England, Alison Saunders, urges police to automatically believe female accusers. Thus, the top English prosecutor is telling police to adopt a guilty until proven innocent perspective. Be worried, America. Jurisprudence is moderated on England, modern after England. Attorney Zertina Maxwell argues that even if innocent men are accused, the greater good is to always believe the female accuser. So it doesn't matter if, like, hey, you're innocent. No, it's okay. The greater good, the right thing to do is just to believe women, hands down. Just believe her. Danielle Campos says that accusers not automatically believed. We tell women, or when accusers are not automatically believed, we tell women they are not people, they are property. Really? Hillary Clinton says all accusers deserve to be heard, believed, and supported. I don't think she thought that way about Monica. Yvette Dion says there aren't lying. Daphne Markin notes that the tension between being required to always believe, yet knowing some accusations are probably false. Publicly, we say #MeToo. Privately, we have misgivings. I suspect many of us, including many longstanding feminists, will be rolling our eyes, having had it with the reflexive and unwarranted sense of outrage, turning this into a series of ad hoc and sometimes unproven accusations. This is feminist talk saying this stuff.
This is literally, Glenn, this is literally what's said at the end there is exactly how you would feel if this happened to your son. But it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen directly to you. But if this happens to your son, then you're going to turn back on all your beliefs because you're going to look at it and be like, this is not fair. This is not right.
Yep. And this is, again, this Dr. Dow's background. He was a special agent in the Air Force. He was OSI. That's Officer of Investigation. So he did this study. And again, this is what, he found out, like within a 25-year span from 1965 to 1990, going through every single rape case in the Air Force from every base. This is what his, evidence, was what the facts proved. That 20% of them were all lies. 30 to 40, they could have gone either way. There was enough evidence to support it either way. But 40 to 50% of all of them were either proven to be untrue or the accuser admitted to lying. But we live in this world that we have to believe all women. We have to believe her. We have to wear our marching points, and do our little thing. This right here explains his 16-point profile, how he does, like how he facilitated it's called I think I forgot, it was like a rap test. Basically, it was a way to go through when a sexual allegation was made or sexual assault was made, right? And it was a series of how they were, when it was reported, what statements were made, things to go through as a checklist to see if they, coincide with, if they score 16 points or more, it was probably false. And then over 36, it was like, damn right, absolutely false. Like, there's no way in hell this is proven true, so it's kind of explains that. And let's see here. And I got a lot of this research from the documentary I'm working on. So you guys getting a little tease.
Is this something that is readily available for?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You guys can buy it on Amazon yourself. Very, very good stuff. So I mean,
what is it called again? Just so I can write it down for myself.
Yeah, it's called the War on Justice for Men.
War on Justice for Men. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, but my question is, guys, like, why in the hell are we in this? Why are we still believing all women? Hasn't there been enough young men lives ruined over these false allegations. I mean, in the book that I was reading and that I have, you guys, it goes further into it. You guys remember that like time, I think on the mid 2000, like 15-ish area, when they were saying like there's this rape crisis epidemic going across the campuses, college campuses. You guys remember that?
Grape culture.
Yeah, the grape culture.
Yeah, it was like 1 in 5 they kept trying to push.
In the book, it's proven to be false. He actually went there and did the studies and proved it to be false.
Yeah.
So why do you think we have this? Why do we have this nonsense?
That's been made public, but they changed the definition. So they went at this approach with a complete definition change, the ones that drove this. So any sex that is regretted is considered rape. Therefore, they consider quite a bit of the hookup culture. There's a lot of regret, so they can consider it rape, you see, and it's rampant on college campuses. And we know that it's almost exclusively women that engage in hookup culture, not men. Very small percentage of men.
4.6% of men?
7, yeah.
And
see, this is another problem. There's the apex fallacy going on here again. For the women, because there's 4.7% of men that are invited essentially to this hookup culture, they ascribe that attribute. Is it attribute or attribute? I can't remember. Those are two different words.
Attribute.
Attribute. It's attributed to the entire population of. I get the two meaning. They're spelled the same, but they attribute it to the entire population of men can participate in this. And there's something like this going on right now with the believe all women. 1 or 2 women are right, so they ascribe that to the entire population, and this is driven on the women's and the extreme. Well, it's even kind of in the neocon realm as well.
No, it's absolutely. I mean, it kind of goes right into the neocon world.
It does. It penetrates all political parties and thought beliefs or belief systems, and they ascribe this fallacy to to all women. They wouldn't lie. Why would they lie? They're these sweet creatures, and what do they have to gain by it? Well, they have a tremendous amount to gain for it, and almost no consequence or accountability will ever be held against them. There's almost no, the odds of them even being caught or having any harm is nil, essentially.
Well, yeah, because we have said that it's not her fault. Especially with the tradcons, right? The tradcons and the church have been saying that, hey, it's the man's fault. It's always the man's fault. Women are not accountable for their actions. They have definitely ingrained that in everybody's head. They do not hold women accountable. So if they don't hold women accountable, if the conservatives don't hold women accountable,
no,
you really think the liberals will not hold it?
Yeah, and then that's part of it, but then the other part of it is the fact that evolutionarily speaking, all of us men are disposable resources for the women.
Yep.
For false law.
Yep.
So it's easy even for us to accept that as men, that men are disposable because men aren't stepping up. Men don't hold themselves accountable. Only a certain amount of men do. And because of competition, the competition for those women is so high.
Guys will get right on board with it.
Men will easily run that bus right back over their competition. I mean, there isn't any of us that hasn't been in a group where you were buds with all these guys, but it's show a little bit of cleavage in that group, and now they're calling you, a butt sniffing, boy, a Peter Puffer. They're all trying to shame you.
I call Hudge that all the time, even when girls are not around. But
he is my bully, and I don't know if I'm in this weird abusive.
He likes our domestic abuse relationship.
That's not the same. What I'm talking about is absolutely not the same. I mean, there is shit talk, and then there is, intentional sabotage, and those are not your friends. Those are guys that would, they would offer their shoulder for your upset wife or girlfriend to cry on, and then hope she would ride on the
Yep.
golden pony while she's
Yep.
upset. And
Here's
not
the thing,
even
though.
looking.
Here's a question for you guys.
So that plays into the whole thing, Glenn.
Here's a question. I think Rolo's tweet kind of like helps this out. It does kind of help avoid all these accusations.
Yeah.
If guys are
explain it.
So, okay, it kind of pushes it more to the tradcon Christian way of like, not engaging in sex, right? So think about it. If more guys were focused on their getting themselves to become a high value man, leveling up, developing the skill set, focus on their career, reaching that goal, not too busy chasing around women. That means they'll have like less sexual interaction, especially if they get a vasectomy, which I think is a great idea. No kids. So they're going to have less fornicating. They're going to be focused on their goals. They're going to be focused on their networking. They're going to be focused on not easing up on their goals, until they reach that point, until they're at that apex point of their happiness or their goal. And then they start getting into, women. You're going to have less, accusations.
Well, let's be clear on Rolo's tweet right here, and let's level set before we.
Well, I'm just saying it kind of pushes it more to the trad Conway. All I'm saying is like
we're not speculating.
You could go it that way.
You could interpret it that way, but rather than interpret it, let's just level set with it. Everybody that I've watched so far that's commented on outside of Rule 0 and a very, very small minority, which
I commented amazingly on it.
Hang on.
You watched the special report?
Let me just hold back. Let me get there. I'm slow. I would not acknowledge my dear friend. So everybody out there, except for a small minority outside of Rule 0, basically immediately took that as advice. Absolutely. And it's like, it is absolutely 100% none of those things. It is simply a statement of fact.
Yep.
That a statement of facts do not make it advice. Everybody that seems to be on the Twitter and on the YouTube that speaks as a talking head seems to not have any real critical thinking skills, but they say they do because it's quite entertaining. And I think that it was just too juicy of a statement of fact not to consider it advice, for which it wasn't, but at least if they consider it, they had something to talk about. And boy, I don't think none of them were that smart to even consider that it was just a statement of a fact. A statement, it was a list. It was a statement. It wasn't advice given.
Do you see how crazy they were?
It's part of the pylon. This is just fuel for the pylon. This will reveal those that really didn't understand the tenets of the red pill and the utility that it actually offers. That is one of the most utilitarian statements out there. Utility is the primary lifeblood of the red pill. It's field tested. What works? What is it that works?
Yeah.
Or I think what's crazy about what your statement is right there is you're absolutely right. Instead, everybody kind of looked at it and figured it was Rolo giving a prescription. But if you look at that, that is, if you would follow those steps, you would become a high value man at that age range. It was 100% like, this is just the easiest, simplest. It's just a statement of fact. Exactly as you said. I love that. It's a statement of fact. That's all it is.
Yeah. And you would get there in your 20s if you did take it as seriously as that. Now, if I'm going to broaden that conversation, I have two different approaches that I would think that if you did desire a family, you would actually, my advice to you is actually be, if you wanted your best shot at family creation and a legacy, and this is going to go against all of them, I think Sneako's too old. He should start that family creation somewhere around 20 years old, 21. So
I started at 23. Yeah.
and somewhere before 25, the earlier the better. And as far as the gals are concerned, well, my wife was married at 17. So, there's a whole reason to start that family early.
And that's not unfamiliar.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
that's,
And it
normal.
forces a guy to really get into a mature spot very, very quickly because nobody's saving them. So they have
Yeah.
to sink or swim, really. And for the woman, she has to invest in potential. That's a big deal. Now,
Yeah.
if you do that, you have a real shot at getting high value somewhere right around 40 years old. If you don't do it that early, then for a man, your real shot at being a high value man is going to come probably right around 40. It's going to be delayed. It's going to be delayed by 10 to 15 years at minimum.
But I also think that, like, because I was talking to Sergio last night on his stream on Purple Pill podcast, because he kind of had an opinion about Rolo's thing too, and he kind of parroted what you just said. He agrees, like some guys that they get kids or have kids early, that actually acts as a motivator to get them to focus and level up because they have people depending on them. I agree with that to an extent. Some guys, I think that some guys it doesn't help with, but I noticed that I'm just thinking, I'm like,
well, part of it's the high definition of a high value guy, which it wasn't the apex alpha at one time, and that didn't sound good to everybody. So now it's this, and nobody on the TradCon side wants to think that a family man is not a high value man. To them, it's the pinnacle of their existence. In reality, they're a beta bucks. Now, they haven't reached that value yet. But if you start early, by the time you actually hit your prime at 35, 40, 45, you have established all that. Your children are grown. They're out of the house. You're rocking and rolling.
And you're still young enough to go have fun.
You can do it all. You can do that. And you could keep rocking. And if anything goes sour, you can keep on going. But you're definitely not going to be that high value man in your 20s with a family or without a family. I mean, if you're going to take that major, and that really, really sets the TradCon's hair on fire because, they don't think a high value man can be a high value man without a wife and children.
Yeah. Here's my question.
That's not true.
So in Red Pill, we talk a lot about, we understand game, we understand networking, we understand, how to interact with women, right? We have, 9 iron rules. We have the 16 laws of Poon or whatever, right? We have all these things about getting sex, but we really don't ever have anything about avoiding women who are bad sexually. We really don't have any safeguards. We don't ever talk about safeguards. I haven't heard anybody tell guys, don't fuck the crazy. I have not yet heard anybody talk about vetting a girl for sex alone. Just we hear about, see if she's sending you sexual interest. Is she showing you that she wants to bang you? Cool. Then have fun. But we don't ever really talk about, like, hey, make sure you see if there's any of these red flags, because you know what? Sleeping with her may be a good time, but
Glenn, I hear what you're saying.
Wild, she could backfire on you.
Let me make sure I'm clarifying this before we dive into it. So we have things like with what Rich Cooper did with his book, The Unplugged Alpha, like he's talking about red flags for relationships. A lot of things we talk about are red flags for a girlfriend or a relationship. We don't talk about red flags before just a first night intercourse with somebody. Correct?
Yeah. And I think it's important to think about that. And in the sense of, like, we're telling these guys to look up for these choosing signals and, work on, interacting with women. We got other guys in the space tell guys, get 50 lays before you get in a relationship. Also, and that's great. I have no problem, whatever, to each their own on that. But we're not teaching guys how to avoid an accusation like this in a consensual sexual situation. And there should be some indicators, some signals, or something that we could measure to say, hey guys, if this is a scenario, you guys may want to, reevaluate what you're walking into. You know what I mean? Because like Thor, we knew you talked about aftercare. Because we knew you've talked about aftercare before. That aftercare can help avoid a lot of these, issues afterwards if done correctly.
Yeah.
But we haven't really expanded upon it as a sphere that I know of. Now I could be completely wrong. Somebody may have already come out with this and have expanded upon it and went into great detail. I have not yet read it or heard of it, but as to my knowledge, I haven't heard anybody talk about, guys, how to avoid these allegations when engaging with women on a casual basis.
Well, prevention is worth a pound of cure. The aftercare, really, that you talk about is really best talked about behind a paywall, because it's really the after the act of sex and the intimacy, and how to keep intimacy going forward and keep that arousal level relatively high so that you have continued interest. It's a conditioning technique, and it's actually makes the relationship, even if it's a short term, 1 night, 2 week, whatever, better, because it's more memorable, because there was genuine care involved. For the woman, that emotional connection is much stronger. Takes effort on the guy's side. Most guys don't ever want to do anything like that. I mean, most of these things come, spur of the moment, and some of them you actually get trapped. I mean, we got to face it, as a group of men, at a certain point during the thirst, direct proximity of a semi-aroused female is extremely difficult to avoid. Any real, conscious, logical thought for a man, especially a young man. It's just amazing. I mean, you guys see the thirst,
Absolutely. One of the things I want to touch on here, Glenn, with because everything that Thor's saying, yeah, this is more behind a paywall, but at least for like today's day and age, when it comes to like what you can do, one of the things that I see said a lot, and I think should be practiced, is if you are having a one night stand, if you are meeting somebody for the first time through a dating app, or even if you just have a fun night after meeting her out, it's always good to have those types of texts afterwards, like, tonight was a lot of fun, like something like that, and getting that response back that's giving the affirmation of it. Because when you have that written affirmation, that can go to court with you. If she decides to change her mind a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple years, or even decades down the road, as we've seen in some of the things that have popped up, if you have that record of it, it's like, well, at the time she didn't regret it. So if she regretted it, months, weeks later, that's, I don't know really what to say about that, because at the time she wanted to do it. That's one of the best things to do. I always do that with any dates that I have had with a girl that came through and anything went on. I always make sure that I'm doing that. I'm not just ignoring her afterwards, because sometimes if you ignore a girl after that intimacy, they may become spiteful anyways. You never know. And it's also just being fucking human. Like, let's be honest, just being fair to the other person, making sure that she didn't come over just because you wanted to use her. Like, let's be frank.
I mean, I think for me, like, I'm a big believer in cameras. Okay. And I know people get all mad and be like, oh, you can't record. Look, you can record them saying like they want to get down with you, or that, like, like, guess where we're going, like just doing a selfie. Let's take a selfie. Where we're going? Back to my house. Yeah. For what? Just, I don't know. Somehow do we make it creative to get some form of documentation that this act of engagement was consensual to some degree? Because even if you're out there, like, doing your thing, right? You're out there, getting, interacting with women, you go to the club, whatever, or a bar, you meet a girl at the gym, you guys hit it off, and then you go back to her place or your place, and something happens and everything seemed good. You guys both had a good time. But then a day or two later, you get this charge now. You get this accusation thrown at you. Unless you have something to verify, that this was consensual. Now you're putting yourself in this pretty rough spot here. And I don't want like guys to not feel confident to go out there and interact with women, because that's a problem. We don't want that either. But we do need to give guys some type of, you know, proceed with caution or some point of.
I swear to God, this is just my sense of humor, so it works with every girl that I've ever been with. I don't know if it would work for everybody out there, but like even if I was on a college campus and I brought a girl back and we're like starting to get into it, we're making out a little bit, and then I just stopped and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Hold on." And then I get up and I'm shuffling through my desk and I pull out my consent form. And I was like, I was trained on this college campus that I need to have a consent form from a woman before intercourse. Would you mind signing this? And also, could you dot your I's with hearts? Like,
yeah, I suppose you could play with that. I mean, you get.
I mean, yeah, that may work for some, but I mean, like, you know,
I think it's fine.
Thor, what do you think? What do you think the guys should do to be able to protect themselves when in the climate that we're in, where being Me Too'd is not uncommon?
All right.
But you know, for guys to have you know, good interaction with women, to get, you know, experience and all that stuff, but also to protect themselves, what do you think how should guys operate?
I'll give you 3 tenets. The first one would be know who your targets are, or know who you're getting around. Social circle game will help you. Absolutely. Because you'll be able to learn history, and that kind of history will help you. And the second part is, okay, just go for the anonymous one night stands where they really don't know who you are, and they're there just for the sex. That's one way too, you know, and forget about anything more than that to protect yourself. But really, just use some caution in building rapport. If you can build rapport and learn a little bit of history about somebody, that's really one of the best things right there, you know, to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Don't drink alcohol, and don't let her drink alcohol. I mean, you don't want to do any of that alcohol stuff. Too many bad things happen when that's involved, you know. I mean,
yeah, I'm pretty sure with alcohol they make it that if there's any intoxication whatsoever,
It's
then
considered
automatically there's zero consent.
Yeah, she's not able to give
well,
consent.
that's the big push, but you know, I was thinking of it more along the lines of it's the big excuse. So, you know,
yeah,
that's
but no, that's the big push now. It's like, oh, if you guys were drunk and you had sex with her, she wasn't able to give consent coherently, allegedly. But then again, neither were you.
yeah, but it doesn't matter when you're using the Duluth model and you're using family court and all that sort of stuff. And you know, social circle is probably the best way to screen around it.
Yep.
Don't find girls at your work. That's a big no, because they have everything to gain from it. Lawsuits, money. There's a golden ticket if they accuse you at work. So you're already have your face in the bear trap, so to speak, at work, if there's women around you that are interested in you. So that's a real danger spot. And it's an industry entirely inside itself. I mean, I don't think there's one of us, me, you, that hasn't witnessed this inside of the work environment.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We've all witnessed it multiple times.
You know, I think this would be a good question for Mike Sartain, because you know he teaches a social circle, you know, program, and I would love to, you know, toss this question to him one of these days and ask him how does he factor in, you know, false accusations and stuff into his, you know, program when it comes to, you know, selecting in social circle.
I don't think he lets the guys get out there and really do this. Like I've heard him talk about it before. Like if you're a really weird, awkward guy, like maybe this type of stuff isn't for you, because he teaches a lot of how to hold certain events and things like that. So they don't find themselves in situations like.
Well, there's a screening process. I know because I went through the screening process already. Like I'm all about joining MOA. When I have I'm getting ready to move, so I don't have the $5,000 just easily to throw at it. But I do plan on joining MOA because I think it's a great networking group to be a part of.
It is.
But I just, just thinking about it, like, man, somebody, I might have to come up with a program or something about, this topic, because I really I haven't seen anything that really kind of discussed this. And I think it's interesting.
Well, your biggest barrier outside of what I said, Glenn, if you have game, this isn't much of an issue. I can't tell you, but the amount of forward activity, sexual activity that's been presented to me, if I were to turn the tables, would be like if I was the woman and they were the man, would be ostentatious and make headlines. But when a woman's aroused, it's I'll bet. I mean, it's free. It is not harassment. It is not assault. It's just her being a woman that's interested. And if you have game to get a woman that interested, you're not going to have that kind of problem, especially if you just use a little genuine aftercare and you're not being a complete asshole liar to where she's regretful and makes something up. And, you run in similar social circles, so it could be embarrassing to her, and you use discretion. You're not going to have that much of an issue. You run into an issue where it's drinking, you're an asshole, and it's one thing or another, and then you go bragging, and then there's boasting about it. It embarrasses somebody, and that's really bad. If it embarrasses somebody, or you don't find out that she has a boyfriend, and then the impact of her finding out through her boyfriend, and she has to save face, guess what? You're the fall guy. She's gonna save face. You made her do it. Okay.
Trust me.
She's a victim. So
I know.
I think you might know a little thing or two about
I know a little bit about that
situation, and you understand it quite fully. So those sort of situations, and if you think back, Glenn, I guarantee there were plenty of signs.
Oh yeah, no, like I recognize it now when I look back at it. I'm like, that was a bad move on my behalf, in that sense.
Yeah.
But like, man, in the moment, you don't really see it, and it's like always, what they say, it's always like looking back, it's like when you look back at oh yeah, I could have seen that.
Yeah,
like,
hindsight 2020.
hindsight, yeah, hindsight's 2020. And it's just like in the moment, that's the thing I think we need to focus on for these guys is like, yeah, if you have game, if she's into you, it helps minimize the risk. I would say, I don't think it's absolute, because there's a lot of there's a lot of high value guys out there. So you can't just entirely rely on game. You can rely on game for most of it, but there's still maybe you
have to have a strong sense of social acuity.
Yeah.
You have to use your social circle. There's a whole lot that goes to it. And then, here's a key component. When you actually get down to it, don't be in a rush. You need to throw some good dick down. Makes all the difference on the back end.
Yep. Now, what do you think legally should there be? Should we be pushing for some reformation in the laws when it comes to dealing with false accusations, and how severe should these punishments be if we're going to start implementing them? Because very rarely do we get people actually accused or charged for these crimes, false allegations, and the guy could be acquitted, but his career is already ruined, his life is ruined, his family, whatever, could be destroyed, and the person that makes these allegations for most of the time have walked away scot-free.
The first thing that I want to say before I turn it to you, Thor, and I want to hear your opinion. The very first thing is I believe that the maximum sentence that was being presented should be given to the false accuser. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think there should be equal penalty at minimum, because there are certain bells that once they're rung can't be unrung.
Yep.
And the ramifications for those could actually ripple throughout society. And so, would there be, on that side of the house, they're going to say, well, one slipping through is too many. But you got to realize the whole justice system with the jury and all that stuff was, one innocent man in prison's worth 10, that have gone free and committed the crime. That was always the standard before for the justice. That's why we had, innocence until proven guilty. But, with the advent of family courts, which are courts of equity, that is not the case, Same with civil courts. They're not innocent until proven guilty. It's preponderance of evidence, which is, courts of equity. It's about what's best for equity. And many times the law's been written for social equity, which is completely opposed to justice for the individual, which goes against what our court was supposed to be, blind justice. And we allowed it to happen because, well, we had massive reforms, some 70 years ago that basically changed us from a society of relatively happy men and women of the 50s and turned it on its head in order to turn our women into cube farmers so they could spend money, consume, and pay taxes.
Yeah.
Double the tax base.
I have like a really out there fix for this all. All right. You ready for this? I got it. All right. So let's say you are officially 100% accused of the Great P stuff. And there's
robots. That's where he's going.
All right. And it's like, you did it. We know you did it, right? We're not going to put you in prison. At least not right away. What we're going to do is when we know without shadow of a doubt that you did it, we're going to take you out. We're going to pants you and neuter you publicly, And then if you're a false accuser of the Great P, what we're going to do is, well, the same thing publicly, and you're going to be walking around looking like you're going to be known as why is she having no? Well, because she lied about somebody doing something really bad, and that was her punishment. So,
like a Scarlet Letter type of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, because
except a little bit more aggressive, than that.
You knew the guy that was caught stealing because they cut his hand off. You knew like, what did happen to him? Oh, he's a thief. His hand's gone. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what is wrong with her? Oh, why does she have that A on her face? Oh, because she's an adulteress. Well, that kept people from doing this stuff. You know what I mean? So maybe we need to go to a little more harsher punishment with this stuff. I don't know. Because obviously the way that we're doing things is not working, apparently.
It's an interesting thought, and I don't disagree with it. I just know it's not going to catch on.
Oh, I know it's not going to catch on. But the whole
more realistic is not to induce more emotionalism to counter emotionalism.
Well, it's not. It's just to stimulate the thought. Like if you throw a ridiculous solution out there, and people are like, "Well, that wouldn't work," but then you try to get them to bring out a reasonable solution, you're kind of drawing them into the middle of finding a more moderate and equatable solution.
So let's be realistic. We're not even going to find a middle solution. What we're going to need to do is we're going to have small jurisdictions abandon the current model slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with men starting to abandon marriage, maybe getting vasectomies in their 20s, becoming high value, and re-entering the market somewhere else or even in another country, that will have an impact over time because the tax base will go. And what's left?
Yeah.
I mean, part of this is part of empire collapse too. I mean, they've turned everything into a oppressor in the religious pursuit of Marxism. Really, it's true.
Yeah.
So our justice system, if we stand and fight to it, somebody's going to take you down. That's what does Andrew Tate say? It's the Matrix. They're going to ridicule you. They'll accuse you. And if you get close enough, they'll kill you or have you disappear. So it's going to have to happen a small piece at a time, really small jurisdictions.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's
it'll happen somewhere in Idaho.
Yep.
Maybe Utah. And they'll no longer tolerate false accusations. And then, it will grow from there because that actual society is pretty stable.
All it takes is like one judge, it takes just one judge to sentence somebody that made false allegations to a very severe punishment over 10 years that will set the precedence of
I don't even
things.
think it has to be that severe. I mean, you ever see a woman just get a year jail sentence? They collapse completely.
But
So
that's
it wouldn't even have
no,
to be that.
no, they need the 10 years because there is women getting it with a
Oh, I know.
year.
I
But
know.
like the year is nothing because they get out in 6 months or
No,
3
no, I
months
know.
if they do
I
a
know.
good time.
I
You know,
know. I
so no,
understand.
I think the 10-year, like, because I think like
Part of the problem is the mandatory sentencing that came along
Yeah.
with that loose model.
Yep.
And
I
so,
agree.
and part of that sentencing is it's carries such a heavy stigma that even guys that get acquitted, 100% innocent, the bell's wrong.
Yeah.
You can't unring it.
Yeah. So that's why I say, like, no, there has to be a severe consequence for false allegations across the board, I think. But you know what? Let's switch it. We're gonna start closing up here. Want to end on a positive note. So let's do a
Yay.
round table. And give our final thoughts on this topic, you know. So Huds, give your final thoughts and tell us what you are working on, where can people find you, what they can expect from you. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Final thoughts on this. I think there needs to be reform. Unfortunately, I don't think that reform is going to happen anytime soon. And I think the best thing that you can do, and going back to what Randall had said much earlier in the show, silence is violence is also a thing. That's the truth. It's important that we are out here and we actually are talking about it because a lot of people don't want to talk about it, and it's important. So I think having the discussion is incredibly important to at least spur the conversation, and maybe things will change and be better for our children. That's kind of where I stand with it. Did you want to mention this here?
Yeah. Thor, what do you think to Kamuri? Kamuri? Did I say it right? I hope I did. Man, you can't expect them to carry out any sort of serious punishment when they're letting out violent felons out of prison in masses. What are your thoughts on that, Thor?
I mean, yeah, we're not going to get the change, guys. It's not going to happen that quick. I mean, it's going to be extremely small, graduated in regards to this particular situation. Our best bet is to avoid. I mean, sometimes you got to play the game to win the game. If you exclude yourself from the game, you can't even win. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, he's stating the truth. These states that have gone this far are still in the midst of fulfilling their ultimate socialist Marxist plan. So we're not done yet. You know,
I think I think the situation just kind of gives guys a reason to be more selective with the women that they get involved with.
I don't think guys can as a whole.
I know. I know there's always the majority is probably not, but if the guys are in tune with what's going on socially and aware of what they could potentially getting themselves into, I think they would be smart enough, or they should be smart enough to start in a way vetting the girl a little bit more than just, is she hot, is she fuckable, and is she going to be a good time? You know, we should check out her behavior. Like, again, I think what Thor said, and I don't want to jump in yet, but I think what you Thor, what you said about alcohol, I think that's a huge key. I think that's great. But go ahead, Thor, tell us what you got going on.
I'm not done.
Oh, you're
I'm not done, Glenn.
Oh, well, hurry up.
How dare you cut me off? I just wanted to make sure we address that. But yeah, and I think that just like on top of that, it's, you know, listening to things like this, reading things, being educated to understand how to protect yourself against situations like this. Because as Thor was saying earlier, as long as you have the information, you won't find yourselves in this situation. I mean, it still can happen, but it's going to be very few and far between. Now, outside of what I'm doing, I mean, I'll let you talk about the news stories that we do. But I do have something that I'm bringing to the space that's going to be pretty interesting. I started a series with somebody where we're talking about like the development of game and dating and kind of how you can start from 0 to hero, all the different stages. It's a very interactive show as well. And we're also bringing in a lot of special guests, like a lot of people that are pretty big out there on YouTube that you may not have heard of, and they also may not be super aware of red pill stuff. So I think it's going to be really cool to blend the two together and try and reach a greater masses on this. So stay tuned for that. And now I can hand it off to Thor.
Well, good. Thank you. It took forever. Oh, Father.
On this subject, it's a tricky subject because it's gonna take a lot of effort to get us guys out of this. I think it's with us for quite a while because this fight is entrenched and it's been ongoing for a very long time. And we'll see where it goes, because this is part of the culture war for sure. I do want to throw something out there at Huds I want to challenge him because he is the dating expert.
Yeah,
Something
he's the
I've
dating
noticed.
guru.
Something I've noticed I want you to delve into, because I think this actually presents a very significant threat to us, at least as the human species here in the West. Maybe not so much in other parts of the world, but I will say this. I want you to take a look at this. In all across nature, females are the ones that are invisible. Why? Because predators look for them everywhere. They don't draw attention to themselves. The men draw attention to themselves. The males do. They try to get the favor of and show their genetic superiority so that they can mate, correct? It's like the peacocks and the peahens, right? So that's interesting. That's been all across evolutionary biology in all species, even in human species until the last, I don't know, 100 years. And then if you go and you look even at hunter-gatherers, the men still do peacocking today. And the women are subdued because they're a protected class. They must be protected. They're revered and protected. Here in the West, men have now become invisible. Who are the peacocks?
You know what's interesting when you say that? I'm thinking so heavy about that right now.
You can go somewhere with this because I think that this is actually a huge threat to men.
But what's interesting about it is that women are now, it's now reversed where they are putting themselves out there. However, they are putting them outside there to the world with ring lights and recording equipment, inside with OnlyFans. So they're still protected and safe inside. But now they're able to put themselves out there without threat of anything else.
So here's my thought. With that right there, you're going to have extremely crashing birth rates, horribly crashing birth rates. That demographic could actually be worse than a natural disaster. It could be worse than a tsunami, worse than a nuclear disaster.
Yeah,
and I say even worse than climate change, because if we're not here, what's worse? And so my advice to any man out there, differentiate yourself from other men. You have to stand out. And when you do, you'd be amazed at the attention you get from the women. But the women are standing out right now. But here's the problem. A woman standing out for what reason? Men fawn over her, but they don't want any of those guys. There's less and less men, presenting themselves as genetic superiors out there. And it's being expressed like in the 4.7% of men that actually get to participate, so to speak, in the hookup culture. How many babies come out of that? Not too many. So it's just an interesting observation, and I don't know what to make of it yet, but it can't be good because, with the females becoming the presenters in the world and being the selectors, and it puts us kind of in the camouflage. They don't see us. That doesn't leave a whole lot of opportunities, and it could be an indicator of things to come, with a crashing birth rate. And so my advice to the young men out there is you're going to have to stand out. If you stand out and you're very social and you're well respected, an accusation that's thrown at you will be less likely to stick.
Thor, where can we find you? What are you doing? Where are you working on?
I'm here in California.
Okay.
Now you can find me.
I know where I can.
You can find me at RP Thor YouTube channel. I'm hoping to do some more episodes and things with you guys and on my own. I've kind of been sequestered because I'm in the midst of doing the final editing passes on my book coming up it's called Creating a Dominant Masculine Presence, which I think you guys will find quite useful.
I find it very good.
So
I think it's great. Thank you guys. For me, I think you know what, guys, you gotta be smart. I think this type of climate, this type of stuff that's going on, should make you even be more choosy of women of who you get with. Just like you're gonna vet them, you got to develop your own vetting for sexual interaction, especially if it's casually and you're just involving yourself in the hookup culture, or resist from getting involved with it, but work on the game aspect, work on the social cues, work on developing that high value man inside you, so that you're able to learn how women show that genuine desire to you. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to act on it, but at least you can be able to develop the skill set and know what to look for when it's time that you do choose to settle down or get involved with women. I think there's ways to mitigate it. I think there's ways to minimize the potential threat. I think that you just got to develop it, see what works best for you. And I think I might be working on something in the future with that. I don't know how long it'll take me, but I think I'm gonna be picking a lot of people's brains on this topic and see what we could come up with. But I want to say something to Huds though. Like Huds, like I get it, like you are this like dating coach extraordinaire and stuff, but we need you not to get your head so big and a dating coach, because like the last really big headed dating coach started fucking guys, and I would hate for you to turn into Anthony.
How would you dare?
I'm just saying.
How would you dare to compare me to Mr.
I'm just saying, I'm worried for you. I'm worried for you as a friend. I don't want you to get your head too big and going out there, and then you start saying, he was a 10 female. So
Glenn, are you saying he got bored with hoes and went to bros?
Yeah. Like I don't want Huds to go down that path, like because dating coaches obviously have this tendency to go bang dudes, and I don't want him to have to go down that road. I'm trying to.
I could see the commercial now. Are you bored with hoes? Well, wait till you taste the bros.
Exactly. So I'm just
invisible, thirsty guys. I mean, a capitalist will take the opportunity.
Yep. But thank you guys for tuning in. You guys be prepared. Saturday, Dragon Ship at 11. We are going to be talking about what exactly again, Thor?
Oh shoot, I have to look. It was going to be something good, I'm sure.
I think it is.
Is married game boss level game? Question mark.
That's right. Long-term relationship game. Is that boss level game? I say it is, and I'll explain why on Saturday.
Or if we take a look at the majority, is it lazy man's game?
Beta style game. Ooh. I guess we'll see.
I could make an argument for both.
Oh yeah. But thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, remember what Rollo said. All right. If you guys don't remember what Rollo said, I'll show you right now.
Glenn Lawrence has been doing God's work.
I know who my God is. Hallelujah.